Hi, so today's recipe is all about caramel. Here's a jar that I've made. It's perfect for a wet day. I've made some nice salted caramel that I'm going to use to fill some chocolates later. But caramel is one of those things that can feel a bit daunting, but it's actually pretty straightforward because you don't need specialist equipment. You can do it all by eye. And it's a great basis for bakers because you can stir it through brownies, you can put it in cakes, you can stir it through ice cream or just dollop it on top, put it in buttercream, put it in tarts, use it to fill macarons. And it's also a really good confidence builder because once you're comfortable with making caramel, you might want to have a go at fudge or honeycomb or other things that will use hot sugar like marshmallows or French macarons. So do have a go. A little bit of health and safety, it's using hot sugar, so a grown-up needs to make this. And you also want to use a nice wide heavy base pan because that's going to give a good surface area so it melts evenly. And also it means, you'll see on the video, if you add something like cream to it and it bubbles up, it's not going to come up and overflow over the pan. So keep it nice and safe and keep your eye on it. It's a bit like a watch kettle. It feels like it does nothing for ages and that will suddenly go. So don't get tempted to wander off and wash up some dishes or something because I guarantee that's the point. It burns and you have to start all over again. So give it a try, take a picture, tag me in it. I love to see what you're doing and let me know how you get on. In this pan, I've got 150 grams of caster sugar and I've tried to use a big pan so I've got a nice large surface area and it's also deep, so if it bubbles at all, it's not going to overflow. And to that, I've got 4 tablespoons of water I'm going to add, and that's just to help my sugar dissolve evenly. It will evaporate off, so it's not going to make any difference to the overall recipe. It'll just make life a lot easier. I'm just going to give that a quick stir while it's melting to make sure it's all dissolved, and then I'm going to leave it alone because when it comes to melting sugar, the more you can just leave it be, the better, because the more you agitate it, the more likely you'll find it will crystallise, and by that I mean it will suddenly go all crystalline and crunchy. You need to be patient here because what you want is to let this sugar go from being all misty, you can see that in the pan, to clear before we boil it. And turn the heat up a little bit. See that that's now gone nice and clear, so I can see the bottom of the pan. It suddenly looks glossy rather than murky. And I know that that sugar has dissolved, at which point I'm going to turn the heat right up. And what I want to do is to let it boil now until it turns terracotta. So it's going to turn on the edges first and it's going to go quite quickly. So we want to keep an eye on it. colour's starting to change. So now I'm going to just twirl the pan really carefully to make sure that heat's evenly distributed. Now you need to wait until it goes terracotta. If you do it at this stage, as soon as it starts to go just a pale colour, it's not going to give you the caramel taste, but you want to watch it really carefully, because if you take it too far, it will taste burnt, and once it's burnt, it's not very nice. So you can lift it off the heat. So you can see there that I'm almost at a nice terracotta colour. I'm going to give it a tiny little bit more. Then I'm going to be ready to take it off the heat, and if I wanted to make a praline at this stage, I would stir some hazelnuts through and pour it onto a greased tray or a silicone mat. So here we go, we're nice and golden now, if you can see, and I've taken it off the heat. I'm going to add some butter and stir it through. Going to turn the heat off. So if I wasn't on a camera, I'd put this on the hob off the heat completely. You might just be mindful that it might spit. So you see that lovely terracotta colour. Now I'm going to put it back down because I'm now going to add some cream. So that was 30 grams of butter that went in, and that's going to fizz now. So I want to be really careful when I add my cream. And you hear that fizz and see it. Don't worry if it all clumps together, it will all melt back down. Just be aware of the steam, because steam can burn. And then optional, the last thing I'm going to add is some salt. So I'm going to take a teaspoon of salt to make salted caramel, but you don't have to. Now I'm going to put this back on the heat and cook it for another minute so it bubbles. I'm on a low heat now, and I'm going to be stirring it all the time because, have I done? Because we don't want it to burn. Now this is the same technique as if you were making things like fudge as well. Just using different quantities and cooking it for different times. If you want to be exact with your setting, you want to use a sugar thermometer, because the longer I cook it on the heat now, the firmer it will set. I'm just going to bubble it out for a minute or two because I want it to be quite a sticky caramel. If I wanted to use it as an ice cream sauce, you could just take it off the heat now, leave it to cool, and then you can pour it over ice cream, which is really delicious, or waffles or pancakes. Bit. So if you are using a sugar thermometer and you want a nice soft caramel, 108 degrees is the temperature you want to get to. And a sugar thermometer is a really good purchase for the kitchen. If you buy a good one, in all sorts of ones, I've got a Mostrad one which is really useful because it's on a really long wire. I'll show you one day. Thermo pens are really good as well, easy to store. And they're great not just for making things like caramels, but you can use them to make marshmallows, macaroons, or macarons, however you say it. And also then you can double it up and use it for meat cooking if you want to check your temperature. Say you've made something like a beef fillet, or you want to check your turkey temperature, or you're into your barbecuing and you just want to be happy with things. They're quite a good thing to have in the kitchen cupboard. So I can see that this has now gone really nice and thick and viscous. You always bear in mind that that it's going to thicken up as it cools, because you've got a lot of molten sugar in here. So we're going to leave that to cool, and you'll, if you want to see what the texture is going to be like while it's still hot, if you get a dish and put it into the freezer for a little while to make it really cold, and then take it out, you can, the same as if you'd made jam, you can put a little teaspoon of it on there, and that will cool it quickly, and then you get a much better idea of what it will be like when it's set. So you want to be really careful with this now. Leave it to one side, don't touch it, it will burn until it's nice and cool, and then it'll be ready for you to use.